Hey guys, what's up? Happy Wednesday. If it's Wednesday, it must be Critique Wednesday because every Wednesday I'm doing critique videos for the last couple of months. Kind of happenstance. Like well, you can go back on my channel and watch all the Wednesday videos. But a couple months ago, I ran on this guy who had a lot of subscribers who did a lot of things wrong in his shower, and that beget the next video and the next video and the next video. So it's become kind of a thing, which I'll probably come off of pretty soon because I don't know. I don't want to be like Debbie Downer, like, you know, every video is going to be, which is not true because there's a couple of videos that I've really praised the guy or woman. The last Wednesday's video was kind of one of those, where the homeowner did his own shower. And yes, I mentioned a couple of things that he had done wrong, but overall, he did a good job. So they're not all negative, just for your information. But I'm probably going to stop them pretty soon because it's hard to keep up with everything going on in my life and everything. It's hard to keep up with all the different videos that are out there. However, I had a subscriber that sent me this video this morning. Basically, he just emailed me, "Hey, Bob, have you seen this video yet?" And oddly enough, it ran across my feed over the weekend. I think it was Saturday. That little feed that you have off to the right side, where YouTube suggests videos and all that stuff. And I just saw the screenshot of a copper shower pan. And I'm like, yeah, okay. What's there to know about it, right? We don't do copper shower pans, but they are a thing. And Matt, I don't like pronouncing his last name because I'll tear it up. Rissinger, Matt Rissinger, who's been around for a while. He's been on YouTube for quite a while. I used to watch his videos back in the day. I don't so much anymore. He's a bit hype, meaning I don't think the way he comes across on camera is the way that he truly is, because hype sells on YouTube. There's a lot of people that are on YouTube who act through their videos, meaning I love you guys. Like literally they just say stuff that isn't true, but people like that and I don't understand why. And Matt's not one of those guys, I don't think. Matt is very knowledgeable to an extent, and I'm going to talk about to that extent here pretty soon when I show the video. So I just wanted to kind of like, I don't know, like speak on this topic because people on the West Coast, basically on the West Coast, are doing what they call hot mops. And I posted a video a couple weeks ago about how hot mop is done. I think it's archaic. I think it's smelly. I think it's messy. I think that there's much better ways to make a shower waterproof than doing a hot mop. But it won't go away. And the people that invented it in 1957, 58, something like that, it's been around for what, about 60, 65 years, something like that. But it's not really a thing. Whereas copper pans and lead pans have been around for a long, long time, starting out with lead pans, and yeah, they went to copper. I have torn out a copper pan, I know once. I may have done it twice, but I know once, and I've taken out probably half a dozen lead pans. At the turn of the century, lead pans were used quite frequently, and they're very, very heavy, I will say that. But they're kind of easy to manipulate because even as thick as they are, they bend relatively easy. So they're relatively easy to get out, and they stood the test of time. Copper pans are more on the East Coast. Like, I talked about hot mops being on the West Coast, and copper pans have been around for a long time on the East Coast. And I imagine there's still some guys taking them out and taking them to the scrapyard and making some money. But anyway, I'm going to get on to this video because I want to say a couple of things about what he's talking about with this particular pan. So I'm going to let this roll. I'm going to come off of full screen.
The Build Show today. I'm in Boston and I saw something that got me really excited. This is a shower pan that I think legitimately will have 100-year plus life. Today's build.
Okay, 100-year plus life. And if you go to that video where he posted it on his channel, 100-year plus life, and people are chiming in the comment section saying, in 100 years, people don't keep things 100 years. Your car doesn't last 100 years. Like things in your house don't last 100 years. Why would a shower last 100 years? Your roof doesn't. I mean, if you're lucky, it'll last 30 years. So to have a 100-year shower pan when things change exponentially, especially the last 30 or 40 years, every 10, 15, 20 years, people are doing renovation. They're trying to keep up with the Joneses or the new style.
We'll show all the details. Let's get going. All right, y'all, let me show you what we're looking at. First off, this is a Howell Custom Builders project. I'm outside of Boston. Brian gave me the full 411 on this. This is wild. Copper pan that he has pre-made at a local fabrication shop. I'm not exactly sure the gauge on this copper, but it feels like it's maybe 20 gauge. Very, very thick copper. It's made in the shop, so you can see it's got a soldered seam here. Some of the seams are folded. So it's folded and then soldered where needed. Custom made for this exact size of this master shower layout. And now here's where things get interesting. Where the drain comes in, the plumber has a PVC drain system below, but this fitting right here is brass. And see how there's holes on that? Let me see if I can shine my flashlight on it to make it a little more obvious. See the holes that are in here in this drain? There's a reason for that. What's going to happen is they're going to screw on with this threaded fitting here a tall drain.
Okay, so let me back up a little bit because these weep holes are very interesting, and he doesn't do a close enough shot, except he's showing with his flashlight there, so basically what it is a trough. There's still weep holes to be fair, but it's more of a trough.
There's holes on that. Let me see if I can shine.
Okay, so where his light is at, you see the holes, but the holes are actually vertical instead of horizontal, right? Because we're used to horizontal holes. But see the little trough? So the welder actually cut the little section that's kind of built up around where the holes are at. He kind of cut that area out so that the water will shed into those 4 areas and into those vertical holes and then go away. So I don't know if copper pans are typically made this way, if they're welded in this fashion to have those type of weep holes. Another interesting thing too, people chimed in the comment section that there's not a pre-slope. And if I'm not mistaken, these copper pans have the little, for lack of a better term, a seam in all 4 corners. So the pre-slope is kind of built into it, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's already a slope integrated into the pan itself. So that when the mortar goes down there, and what he talks about is putting the drain barrel on there, screwing it down to 1.5 inches or 2 inches or whatever, and putting your mortar around it, so that now it's already pre-sloped with no pre-slope, if that makes any sense. And then of course the mortar bed is sloped as well, but it's interesting.
My flashlight on it to make it a little more obvious. See the holes that are in here in this drain? There's a reason for that. What's going to happen is they're going to screw on with this threaded fitting here a tall drain body that will actually have square, round, whatever you want, that will stick up by a couple inches. And then they're going to bring a trade in that will put a mortar bed down.
Okay, this is interesting. So when Matt talks about they'll bring a mortar bed in here, then he's putting an example of a sloped mortar bed by Isaac Ostrom, tile coach, down there in the little section there. So he did a little shout out to Isaac, so that's kind of cool.
A sloped mortar bed. So where the drain is, that mortar bed will probably be like 1.5 inches thick, let's say. And the mortar is going to be sloping out on the sides, and it'll be probably like 2.25 thick at the edge here. So it'll have about 1/4 inch per foot slope. Now below that mortar bed though, if any water got through, we need a place for that water to weep into the drain. So that's what the holes here are doing for us. They're giving us a weep spot to have that water weep through, if you can see that. A little hard to tell, but it's just a real small weep spot in there. So now after the mortar gets installed in that sloped fashion, then Brian is going to do a waterproofing later on top of that mortar. I don't like a mortar bed getting wet. And so he's going to put 2 layers, or actually 3 layers, of either RedGuard or Hydroban. That's like a liquid waterproofing that we use a lot in the construction world.
Okay, interesting that he mentions, because let me get on my little high horse. Let me get on my high horse for a moment, and take him off so that you guys can kind of focus on me. I started doing a waterproof shower pan, what we call a sealed system now, 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago. Yeah, probably about 12 years ago. I started sealing the entirety of my shower, all the way up to the neck of the drain, and putting silicone around the drain, because that's the Achilles heel. That's the only spot water can get into. So I made that possible. At that same time, I raised my wallboard off of the shower pan, because every time I see a failure, I figure out how to not do that failure. And always I would see the pan, or the wallboard inside of the pan wick up water, mold and mildew, blah blah blah. So I started raising up my wallboard. I started that because it made sense. I also started the seal system by waterproofing, like he said, 2 or 3 coats on the surface. And then Flow Effects came around, I don't know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, something like that. And they kind of made my way of doing things a little better with the product, meaning that it's not better necessarily, but it's easier for a homeowner, I think, to have instructions, because I don't have an instruction book on how to apply waterproofer on a shower pan except for my videos. But because Flow Effects Drain is a literal product that gives you instructions and tells you to put the cloth membrane and all that stuff and blah blah blah, they've devised their sealed system with a product, whereas I've already done that years and years ago. And now Matt is talking about, then they're going to come in there because he doesn't like water in the pan, which I agree with 100%, which is why I started doing that 10 years ago. But then why have a $2,000 copper pan with weep holes? It doesn't make any sense. So that pan is specifically designed for a water in, water out system that they're going to encapsulate with RedGuard or Hydroban. It makes no sense. And I don't assume that Matt knows everything about everything, because obviously if you go to the comment section, and he's going to talk about this in a minute, then they're going to put HardieBacker. Why HardieBacker? And somebody chimed in and said, why don't you put like GoBoard, you know, like a foam board or whatever. And then Matt chimed in, I don't know what that is. How do you not know what foam board is? And then he talks about Schluter system and how he likes that much better. I don't like Schluter system. I think it's a big, tremendous waste of money. The means doesn't justify the end. You know, to have a foam curb and foam walls and foam this and foam that. You could build your whole shower with Schluter and end up in both arms weighing in at 10 pounds, maybe 20, but you could lift your whole shower prep in your arms minus the mortar. There's something that just doesn't ring good about that. It's like that plastic bumper that we have, the foam plastic bumper that you see on the side of the highway all the time. You know, like you have this foam bumper that ends up falling off the car and on the side of the road. Both of my trucks have steel bumpers. You'll never see a steel bumper on the side of the road. And the analogy is, you know, the way we build showers traditionally is a steel bumper. And Curdy, Schluter, all those materials and all that stuff is a foam bumper. Like that's all it is. It would be a good float. You go to the beach with one of those foam curbs and, you know, like rescue people with it. So it's not that I'm old school, but there are some things that just don't make any sense. And one of these things, getting back to the video, because I go on a diatribe, one of the things that doesn't make any sense is that he's going to use a traditional mortar pan with copper that cost about $2,000 underneath it, and then waterproof the surface. It makes no sense. It's diametrically opposed, right? Then there's other people chiming in and saying that the copper pans would give way, that they would end up the same way old copper pipe does with little pinholes and stuff like that because of the constant saturation, both of the water and the mineral deposits, and also the mortar itself because it's a cement material, and I guess they don't mix very well, copper and all this other stuff. And so copper pans apparently fail. I don't know that to be true or not. I know lead pans don't fail for sure. So tell me what you think about, if you have any knowledge about copper pans, which I have like very, very little knowledge about copper pans, put it in the comment section because I want to know. And if I want to know, probably other people want to know too. But I don't think that having this copper pan, because this guy, this homeowner has the extra money to spend on it, makes your shower any better. I think for what he spent on the copper pan, he could have had, 4 or 5 traditional pans already built with that kind of money. It just doesn't make any sense. I don't know, just me.
And then see how it's flapped up by a couple inches? This is so he can put cement board on top. Like a hardy backer will go on here. And they'll make sure not to nail in the bottom section of that hardy backer. They'll nail it in here. The hardy backer goes on, and then that will also get 2 or 3 layers of Hydroban or some other type of liquid waterproofing. And
So now, so here's the thing. So now he's talking about they're going to put hardy backer up, and then it's also going to get Hydroban. So your entire pan surface and your walls, and I imagine the curb, however they fashion that, because they're not showing that. All he's going to talk about is they're going to build a cement curb, which again doesn't make any sense. You're going to wrap copper around a cement curb. I don't know.
then at the front lip here, where this is, see how this is kind of flapped right here? They're going to make a concrete curb. They'll put a form board, they'll set a form board on here. They'll actually pour a curb on here and then later come and flap this copper over. Now, before that concrete gets formed, he's going to put a piece of flashing down so that if that were to get any water, it won't get the subfloor wet.
Okay, that's not going to be true. If that curb does get any water, a piece of flashing on that OSB subfloor isn't going to help you. Water will find its way to ruin things. So a piece of flashing where your concrete curb is at, I don't even know how would you even attach that? Hold on, let me go back up.
Put a piece of flashing down so that if that were to get any water, it won't get the subfloor wet. He'll put that concrete curb down, fold this over, and then again Hydroban that as well.
So he's going to put a concrete curb, well, he's going to put flashing on the floor to stop water from ruining the floor, which is not going to work. Then he's going to flap over this concrete curb with the copper, and then he's going to red guard over that. Hold on a minute.
Over, and then again Hydroban that as well.
Hydroban what? The copper? Hold on.
It won't get the subfloor wet. He'll put that concrete curb down, fold this over, and then again Hydroban that as well.
Okay, that doesn't make any sense. At the end of the day, this is an over-engineering of something that's very simple. I'd rather have him talked about a water in, water out system, because that's what this pan is built for. And I still don't agree with that. I still think that it's archaic and doesn't necessarily make your shower any better or any worse. It's all the prep and it's all the waterproofing that you do afterward that matters, right? Like all the mistakes that you can make underneath the waterproofing are irrelevant and negated by your waterproofing on the surface. So I don't know. It seems like a waste of money to have this copper pan.
So then, if you can picture the shower later, it'll have those cement-based walls, the hardy backer that's on there. It'll have a cement slope on top of this copper. And the copper is really the waterproofing at the very bottom layer. But the Hydroban that's connecting the walls to that cement, or pardon me, to that mortar bed, is what's actually doing the drainage. I visited a job site with Brent Hull that had a lead-based flashing system, lead-based pan that was at least 100 years old that was getting ripped out. And when they were pulling that pan out, all the wood around it was totally dry. I was shocked that after 100 years, that shower totally dry.
Yeah, same thing. You know, same thing. Well, that's not true. I know one lead pan I pulled out where all the plywood, all the plywood that was. So I was above the garage. The bathroom I was working on was directly above the garage, and the lead pan that I pulled out, the plywood had delaminated. Like I literally put my hand through the plywood and I could see the inside of the garage. So I'm not going to say lead pans, operator malfunction is real, and the lead pan failed, but it was also old, like he said, you know, 100-year-old house. Another thing too to keep in mind, if any of you guys are watching this, you see this part here where, let me show you, let me back up there a little bit. All that stuff, all that float material, see those, hold on a minute, see those walls? Put on my glasses, I can't see diddly. See those walls? Those walls had lathing on it. And on top of the lathing, they had cement. It was floated walls, and they were heavy, heavy, heavy. Probably those three walls alone, forget the floor, but those three walls alone probably weighed in excess of 300 or 400 pounds. It's all laden with asbestos. This isn't something that I'm thinking. This is something that I know 100%. You know, back in the day, I had taken an asbestos remediation course, and I am a certified remediator. What do they call that? What did they call me? They called me something knowledgeable or something to that effect. But I had to learn about asbestos, and I learned way too much because now it all scares me because you get mesothelioma because asbestos is so fine. It's like fiberglass, but it's much, much finer than fiberglass. And once it gets into your lungs, it doesn't go away. Like you could cough out fiberglass, or I guess it could dissolve in your body or whatever. Asbestos particles don't do that, right? So if you're ever going to tear apart a bathroom that was, say, prior to 1970s, and you have floated walls and floated floors and all that stuff, 100% guaranteed it had asbestos in it. In that course, I found out that almost every man-made material, that's from the sheetrock to the sheetrock mud to the cement to everything, had some sort of asbestos in it. And therefore, when you make that asbestos airborne, in other words, all that dust and all that stuff, that's when you inhale it, and that's when you get mesothelioma over, you know, many, many years. You know, you need a lot of exposures. My exposure is probably like that, whereas railroad workers and other people, their exposure is like that, and yours is probably like this. So it's not that you're going to get mesothelioma just because you had an exposure to your bathroom. What I'm saying is get a good mask, not a mask at Home Depot. You got to spend $150, $200 for a rebreather type respirator in order to keep all those particles out of your lungs. So just know that to be true, because everything in that house had asbestos in it. And the only way you can mitigate that is to actually wet it. You could spray stuff down that you know has asbestos in it so it doesn't become airborne. So yeah, you could wet it down, and that's a way to not get it into your lungs, but still wear the mask.
Dry. And they didn't have Hydroban or these other kind of fancy materials back then. So I got to say, this is really impressively dry. I was shocked that lead-based flashing system, lead-based pan that was at least 100 years old that was getting ripped out. And when they were pulling that pan out, all the wood around it was totally dry. I was shocked that after 100 years, that shower totally dry. And they didn't have Hydroban or these other kind of fancy materials back then. So I got to say, this is really impressive. Will I do this on my jobs? I don't know, maybe. I still do like some other systems like the Schluter system, for instance. But I got to say, this is really impressive. And it's really fun to come to a really old town like Boston that has, you know, 200 years plus of construction details, that the plumber's like, oh yeah, I need a copper pan, I'll get it. So basically the plumber did all this work that you're seeing to this point for Hal. And this is their standard system. If I pan over here to this other, no pun intended, to this other shower and this other bathroom, same exact thing. Guys.
So that's it. That's the end of the video. But I just wanted to kind of like point out to you guys that there are different systems, but because you have a different system doesn't make it a better shower. Like literally these pans, these copper pans or lead pans or whatever pan that you have, you know, whether it be rubber membrane or whether, it doesn't really matter what the makeup is. it doesn't make your shower any better. It's the installation and how you do all of your prep that makes the shower better, not the material. Material is kind of like, I call it a tool sometimes. I use Kerdi fabric for a shower pan liner because it's a tool in my toolbox when I need it. And I do it maybe once every 2 years or 3 years. You know, typically when I'm doing an outside corner where I have 2 outside corners on a shower, Kerdi is much easier to deal with than a traditional pan liner. You know, the mill thickness on a pan liner, you can't get those corners, that outside corners. Or if I'm in a condo, which has happened a couple of times, and I have steel studs, metal studs, whatever, it's really hard to get any blocking in between it. And then how do you screw into, so anyway, yeah, I use Kerdi for that too. So the material is kind of a tool in my toolbox to use when needed, but it's how you use the material, how do you utilize it, and how you install it, and all that stuff that matters. That copper pan is beautiful, like it's just beautiful to look at. But eventually it's going to get all the mortar in it. It's going to be waterproofed on the surface and everything. I just don't understand rhyme or reason. You know, like I said, the guy's got extra money to spend on a copper pan, then by all means, whatever. It doesn't make your shower any better. But anyway, that's it. I'm hitting that 30-minute mark where people will get bored and go away. So I'm going to go away myself first. I have a video coming up Friday. I know I promised it on my last video that I had a video coming up Friday about how to move a drain on a concrete slab from here to over here. And I had issues with the editing of that video. So that video did not pop up on Friday, in case some of you were wondering. It will be definitely on this Friday. So in a couple days, you can go watch that video. It's very interesting. It's actually more interesting than watching this one. Anyway, that being said, have a wonderful couple of days left of your work week. And will summer get here? Like we're going through winter all over again. It was 88 yesterday. 88? Yeah, it was 86 yesterday. And today it was like 60. It's going to be 40 tonight. Can summer get here, please? Please?